Tell me, magic check. Subtitle. Starter. Yes. Right. Okay. So we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the brand new episode of the Life Positive Show. I hope all of you are taking good care of yourself and thinking positive. The topic for tonight is the symbolism behind Hindu gods. Most people, especially the non-Hindus, look at our deity worship with dismay. They think, why is it that our gods have multiple hands, heads, have animal companions, and some even look like animals? Even Hindus worship their deities without trying to understand the spiritual significance of their physical form. Have you ever wondered why is it that the way they look the way they do? Is there any deep meaning which they want to convey to us through their appearance, which we have never tried to understand or find out? To understand this, symbolism, the language of symbols in which our gods are speaking to us, we have with us Archana Raghuram. Archana Raghuram, whose talk on quantum physics and Vedanta has become hugely popular among the netizens of India, is the former CEO, United Way Chennai, and former Senior Director, Cognizant. She was awarded the prestigious Forbes India Philanthropy Award in the Good Samaritan category by Forbes India magazine. She was honored as one of the 100 most creative people in business by a leading US publication, Fast Company. She has a YouTube channel called Temples, Books and Science, where she shares her knowledge on Hindu philosophy, temples and books that are at the intersection of science and spirituality. So thank you, Archana, for being on the show tonight, for being
My
for
pleasure,
all the
Shivi.
readers and the subscribers of Life Positive. We have come here to discuss this very, very fascinating topic of the symbolism behind Hindu gods. Archana has a wealth of wisdom. She is very deeply rooted in Vedanta, science, and the intersection at which both of these meet. So of which she is very well rooted in these subjects and is should I ask you my first question?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Please go
fine.
ahead, Shivi.
Yes. So Archana, why do you think our gods look the way they do? So can you give us some example of the symbolism embedded in their physical form?
Okay. See, traditionally, Shivi, we have a culture of embedding knowledge in our art, in our literature, in our poetry. So all our Puranic stories are allegorical. See, there are demons and gods and they're fighting wars, but at a deeper level, they have deep symbolism and deep philosophical meaning. So most of our Puranic stories are allegories. And this kind of metaphors are used even in how our gods are represented. So we go walk in and we see those four hands and weapons, and to most people who are non-Hindus who have not been exposed to them from childhood, they appear very weird. But all of them have deep significance, and a lot of it is connected to our Vedanta, the philosophy of our Vedas. So let me tell you first, when was the first time I understood there was symbolism in our gods? We have been exposed to gods from childhood, going to temples and this puja room at home. Then once I was in college, I read this beautiful description of Ganesha. Ganesha has many different so many layers of symbolism in him, the form of Ganesha. But one I found most intriguing was the first one which I've read about Ganesha. See, Ganesha means a leader. Gana is a group and Isha is Lord. A person who leads a group. So Ganesha, literally, the Sanskrit meaning of Ganesha is a leader. And all the leadership qualities are embodied in the form of Ganesha. Ganesha has elephant head. I'm not going to put up an image of Ganesha. Most of us know how Ganesha looks. So he has an elephant head. So the large ears represent the ability to listen. One of the important skills a leader should have, good listening skills. His broad head represents intelligence. His tiny eyes represents concentration. And the trunk of the elephant, it is supposed to have a wide range. It can pick up a needle and also uproot a tree. So that should be the range of leaders' skills, ability to look at the smallest details and the large, big picture also. And big stomach represents the ability to digest anything. All the shocks you absorb and digest, that is big tummy. And then his vahanam is a little mouse. Mouse represents the ego, because mouse is very destructive. It keeps nibbling on things, destroying a lot of things. So it represents the ego. And an ego is essential for a leader, because only then he can have belief in his vision. Only then he can sell his vision and lead a set of people. But the ego of a leader should be small and under his control, so that it doesn't blind him to new ideas, to people who don't necessarily agree with him, but who may have brilliant ideas. So his ego should be under check. Although he rides on his ego, it should be small and under his control. So all the qualities that embody a leader, all the leadership qualities are represented in the form of Ganesha. So I found this very, very fascinating. And then when I got truly interested in this subject is in my Vedanta class. My teacher, my guru, was explaining the symbolism of Chin Mudra. This is a mudra. How even the smallest detail of our deities have so much meaning in it. Chin Mudra is also called Jnana Mudra. This is how it looks. This is how it looks. So if you notice, if you go to temples, any form of God as a guru in the form of a teacher will hold this mudra. So Shiva as Dakshinamurti is form of Shiva as a guru, and he will have this mudra. Similarly, Vishnu, who is as Hayagriva. Hayagriva is the teacher form of Vishnu, who is as the guru form. He will also have this mudra. And he was explaining what is the meaning of this mudra. So this particular mudra summarizes the entire teaching of Vedanta. So if you look at this hand, this represents the ego, the index finger, because it keeps pointing at everybody, judging other people, creating trouble. So the index finger is the ego. And the other three fingers are body, mind, and intellect. Body, mind, and intellect. So what happens is ego is always associated with this body, mind, or intellect. So I say I'm this body. When I talk about my age or my height or my weight, I'm associating with my body. Then sometimes I talk about my emotions. I'm angry, I'm in love, I hate somebody. So then I'm associating with my mind. Then when I'm thinking, I'm reasoning, I'm associating with my intellect. So this ego is thinking that I am one of these three things. I'm this body, mind, and intellect. And the thumb represents God, because the hand cannot function without the thumb. And it is away from the other three.
Lovely,
so that
lovely.
The thumb represents God. So what happens, as long as this ego is associated with these limited things, body, mind, and intellect, you will always be limited. Just like a line has a beginning and end, you will always have a beginning and end. You will be born and you die. But once you realize that this is not you, your true nature is God, you are one with God, and you associate yourself with God, you become complete. How a circle has no beginning or end, you attain immortality, you become beginningless and endless. And in this tiny, tiny mudra, which you hardly notice, how many times you go to temple and see Dakshinamurti, you would hardly notice him holding this mudra. But in this tiny mudra, they've summarized the entire teaching of Vedanta. This is Vedanta. This is the crux of Vedanta, and they've summarized it. So this is the knowledge this guru is giving to you. That's the message he is giving.
So, Archana, that is really profound what you just shared. And the tragedy is that this symbolism actually got lost. We don't know what they signify and why they are the way they are and what are they trying to convey to us. So do you think that they have always existed in this form, or the rishis of yore gave them this form in order to convey certain essential messages to the human beings? so that each time they worship these deities, they are reminded of their own higher self and how they are supposed to exist and function in the world. I don't know, like, were they created with a certain idea in their mind, or like kind of they were perceived in this way by our rishis, and then they kind of gifted these gods to us.
Okay, so there is this has got many, it requires some thinking to answer this question. So are our gods just symbols? Do they really exist? So Brahma,
Right.
Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, do they exist?
Hmm.
So there are two different things which we have to understand. First is when you talk about the symbolism of God, of these gods, of course, each of these images, Brahma, the creator, is a creative power. Whether Brahma has this form and shape is the question you're trying to ask, right?
Yes,
Whether
yes.
it is just a symbolic representation of the creative power, or does he really exist in this form? So that is there is see there are what our rishis say is, you invoke whenever you pray to a deity in a certain form, you invoke certain powers. When the whole universe is nothing but God, everything that exists is God. That is the Advaita philosophy. But during your transaction, you require different powers, right? Let's say when you're going through a very difficult phase, you're invaded with negativity, you need powers to destroy the negative forces in your life. And let's say you're studying, you need knowledge, you need intelligence, you need sharpness, then you require a different power. So what each of this deity does is they invoke the power that you are seeking. Everything is God. Like ocean is only water, river is also water, pond is also water. But each of when they acquire a certain form and certain shape, they perform a certain function. So you tap into that power. So when you talk about gods, do they really exist in that particular form? It's like talking about a mantra. Sanskrit, we have mantras. So there is a meaning for the mantra. So if I just translate it into English and keep repeating it, will it have the same effect? The words of the mantra itself are supposed to have a power, no? That is, so the mantra is also one form of God in our religion. Similarly, you have yantra, you have sacred diagrams, and you can invoke that power in the sacred diagram. And this form of God with a particular weapon and a particular dress is also supposed to have the ability to invoke that power. So in addition to the symbolism of the image, there is also a certain esoteric component to our gods that only the rishis, I am too small a person to explain or be able to, break it down. But those, you cannot dismiss those as merely symbols. You have to also acknowledge
Yes. I feel, Archana, that these are eternal symbols. It's like no matter. I don't think that they were created. They existed the way they did, and they were kind of perceived by the rishis and then kind of shared with the whole world. Because generally what happens is, and I've seen this in several people, that they strictly believe that it is we who give the form to the concept of God. And when they do, when they start believing in this manner, then it becomes very difficult for them to have any sense of reverence towards the deity from which they are expecting so many blessings. Because then kind of you're placing yourself above the deity. So then what happens is that if this is kind of shared with them, that it's basically they've always existed, and it's how they were perceived and then kind of brought to you. Perhaps it will be more empowering for any devotee or sadhak.
My way of looking at it, Shivi, is many people dismiss, okay, even if you don't believe that these are gods, even if you don't have the faith. See, even I believe that these have come down from our rishis. These are revelations. But even if you don't believe it, even from a purely intellectual point, you can appreciate these symbolism, how the beauty and the nuance with which it has been done. So even if you don't go there, even if your faith is a problem for you, you cannot dismiss it, because they're works of brilliance, they're works of great art, I feel.
So, Arjuna, again, I would like to go back to how you have explained the deity form of Lord Ganesha. So, did you actually read about him, or kind of in your study of Vedanta, you chanced upon this particular aspect of this form of divine?
Yeah, I have been, well,
around.
since I heard about this Chinmudra. Chinmudra was my first, after I heard about Chinmudra, I decided I should learn more about it. So I've read a lot about it. I've heard discourses on it. So I've picked it up from various places. I've been reading a lot about this subject. It's not something my
Wonderful,
own invention, but
great
mostly from knowledge of others, from
to
books and from people and from gurus. That's how I've learned about it.
lovely. So, like now, let's come back to Shiva and Vishnu. They also appear in not one but many forms, and it's like Shiva is in the form of lingam, and or even Kal Bhairav, and Vishnu is worshipped even as Saligram, and maybe some other forms also might not be aware. So, why do you think they are there in so many forms, and what they are trying to tell us?
So, Shivi, this whole universe, again, I want to reiterate, the whole universe is nothing but God, according to our philosophy. So, different aspects of this God. So, when you look at God as everything, you will invoke different aspects of God in different forms. For example, if you take, I spoke about Chinmudra of Dakshinamurti. Dakshinamurti is a form of Shiva as a teacher. Now you can see all the aspects. What are all the things which make up a guru? That is, do you hear the noise in the background?
Sorry for the background.
No
Sorry for the
problem.
background. Okay,
No
fine.
problem.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's say Shiva as a lingam itself, let us take. Lingam is again a very, what to say, not many people are comfortable discussing it. It is considered a phallic symbol. Yoni is a womb, and lingam is supposed to be a phallus, and Shiva lingam represents the point of creation as the union between Shiva and Shakti. In our tradition, sexuality was not considered a taboo. That is why you have like even if you in temples you'll see a lot of genitals exposed and many sexually explicit images in our temple, because that was also considered another aspect of life. It was never considered a taboo subject. So now if you look at it from the lens of our modern day interpretation, it is not a comfortable topic for many people to discuss, but generally it is considered a phallic symbol. Now, Shiva is Nataraja, that's a different topic altogether. Then let me talk about Shiva's basic form as a, as a mendicant. If you look at Shiva, he has 3 eyes that represents the sun, moon, and the fire. The third eye is supposed to represent knowledge. The fire, the third eye is supposed to represent knowledge. That's why when he opens the third eye, he burns Manmata, the god of desire. Because when you get knowledge, you're rid of all your desires. The fire of knowledge burns all your desires, I believe. That's the symbolism of the third eye. When your third eye opens, when the eye of knowledge opens, all your desires disappear. And Shiva is supposed to be white, which represents purity. God, he's a god of destruction. Why is he white in color, you may wonder? Because in our tradition, destruction is considered a form of purification. You see, anything that gets destroyed is actually you're eliminating the old and rejected, and you're renewing something out of it, right? So Shiva is an epitome of purity. That's why Ganga flows from his head, because Ganga is the ultimate purifier. So because it is flowing from his head, it's able to purify everything, even the worst of sins it can purify. So even in his hands, he has Trishul. Trishul represents the 3 aspects of Maya: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. All the 3, the entire Maya is under his control. And you can see he wears the moon as his crown jewel, right? So moon represents the concept of time. We normally have the lunar calendar. So he is the master of time. To him, time is just a crown jewel. So all these are represented in the form of Shiva, the basic form of Shiva, which you find. And then in his various aspects, he represents different manifestation of this form. For example, Shiva's Dakshinamurti is one of my favorite forms. Dakshinamurti means a god who's facing south. Most
Actually,
of our
many people in the north may not be aware of this form of Lord Shiva. So, can you just show the Dakshinamurti?
Okay, let me show it. Let me show it. Okay. See if I'm able to share. I'm unable to share somehow. Are you able to see Shivi?
No.
See if I'm able to share again once more.
If it's not happening, maybe we can show it later.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay, let me see if I can. Because when we did the dry run, I was able to share all participants. Okay. One last time, I'll try. No?
No, somehow. Maybe,
okay, so let me
maybe
just
later.
talk you through it. Okay, let me
Yes,
just
yes.
talk you through it. So Shiva is Dakshinamurti, is a form of Shiva as Guru, and he's facing south. Dakshin means south, right? And most of our gods don't face south because south is the direction of death. So by facing Shiva, by facing south means he's not afraid of death. We're all afraid of death, so we try to turn away from it. And the other reason he's facing south is this knowledge leads to immortality. So all his students have turned away from death and are facing him. Then if you see Dakshinamurti, he'll have, of course, his Chinmudra in his hand, and under his feet he will have a demon called Apasmara, who represents ignorance. So he has conquered ignorance, and he's the master of he's the master of knowledge, and also he's very young. The one of the descriptions of Dakshinamurti, he is young. All his students are old. You know, all the sannyasis will be bearded old people, but he's very young. That's because this knowledge leads to immortality. It's the ultimate conquest. Conquest of ignorance is the ultimate conquest, and once you conquer it, it is immortal. You are immortal. And he's sitting under a banyan tree. He's sitting under a banyan tree, and this banyan tree normally has those roots, no? This banyan tree, which Dakshinamurti sits under, does not have those hanging roots. This banyan tree represents our thoughts and desires. Once we conquer these thoughts and desires, none of these roots are hanging from the banyan tree, then you can see the Dakshinamurti who is right in then your mind becomes ripe for knowledge. He's sitting right in your heart. And he is always smiling, I believe. He's called Svatma Ramam, the one who is smiling with his own bliss. His happiness is so self-contained. So that is another result of this knowledge. That is, your happiness does not depend on any external factors. Once you realize who you really are, your happiness comes from within. So he's always smiling, I believe. So that is the symbology of Dakshinamurti.
Wow.
So like the Shiva in many different forms has different meanings.
Right, right. I think if we really delve deeper into the meaning of all these forms of divine that we have in the Hindu pantheon of gods, it will take us so much deeper to ourselves. Instead of just going to them and worshipping them and seeking their blessings, we will become more self-aware, which most of us are not, because we are so divorced from our tradition, our roots, our culture, the real knowledge that was at the root of the Sanatani tradition. So, okay, so can Shiva we have discussed, and yeah, Vishnu also, I think we just discussed very briefly, because now he also comes looking very magnificent. So he has 4 arms, and one has lotus, and other has some that mace he has. One other, yes, one other he has shank, and one hand is, I think, in Abhay Mudra. If I remember clearly, and he also has some symbol the center of his chest. It's
Kaustubam and Kaustubam money he has, and he has is that on his chest he has another Lakshmi also,
Yes,
and he has
yes.
got Kaustubamaniya.
And then another image, he's shown lying on the serpent bed, and his consort, Sri Lakshmi, is always shown sitting at his feet, which we like don't see with Shiva. Shiva is also oftentimes shown as Ardhanarishwar, so Parvati is always his equal. Whereas in Lord Vishnu's case, she's always had his feet serving very lovingly. So then, again, I just want to know. And then the ocean is also made of milk and not of saline water. Any reason why he's represented the way he is in our mythology?
Okay, so for that we should understand the Trinity, Brahma,
Correct.
Vishnu, and Shiva. See, again we have one God, one principle called God, and God as a creator is perceived as Brahma, and God as the sustainer, the one who runs the world, is visualized as Vishnu, and God as the destroyer is Shiva. And this creation happens because of what is called Maya Shakti, and Maya has three qualities: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So Brahma is associated with Sattva Guna, and his wife is Saraswati, the goddess of learning. So if in the simplest term, if you want to look at it in the simplest terms, what is most essential for creating something? If you have to create something, of course, you need a lot of materials, but the most important thing is you should know how to do it. The knowledge and skill is the most important aspect of creation. So Brahma, the creator, his wife is his Shakti. Wife is not something separate. The power of the creative power is depicted as Saraswati, who is the goddess of learning. So she's the embodiment of all the knowledge that is required for creation. So if you take Brahma, he has 4 heads, and the 4 heads are the 4 Vedas. Vedas, those days, Vedas were the repository of knowledge. Veda itself means knowledge. So he is and with this knowledge, and all his instruments are that of yajna. So yajna is the process through which he creates it. And Saraswati, his wife, is his power, is the embodiment of all the knowledge of the universe. And Vishnu is the sustainer. And what do you need most for maintaining something? Even if you want to maintain a house, what you need most is prosperity and wealth, right? Because running something takes a lot of material wealth. You need influence, you need money, you need power. So many things are needed to keep something running. So goddess of wealth and prosperity is his wife. And Shiva is the destroyer. So his wife is literally time. Kali is derived from the Sanskrit word Kala, which means time. So what is the biggest destroyer? Time. Everything is destroyed in time. So Shiva's power is Kali. So why is Lakshmi alone pressing the feet? Many people say maybe Vishnu is a very patriarchal deity. Brahma and Shiva have given equal positions to their wives, whereas Vishnu has not given. So Vishnu in our symbology represents dharma. You know, how do you run the code? The law of the universe is dharma, like how we have a constitution and a law, right? So in our shastras, the law based on which the whole universe function is dharma. So Vishnu is the embodiment of dharma, and Lakshmi is the embodiment of prosperity. So the symbolism of Lakshmi being subservient to Vishnu is that your pursuit of wealth should always be in service of dharma. You can that should not become an overpowering thing. Your pursuit of wealth and prosperity should not be at the expense of dharma. So your highest priority should be dharma, and the pursuit of wealth and prosperity should follow dharma. That is why Lakshmi is at the feet of Vishnu, whereas Shakti, Parvati, and Shiva are equal. Time is the power of Shiva, and she destroys. She is the destructive power of the universe.
I like to kind of interrupt you over here. Okay. But when we look at the image of Kali, there in that form, even Shiva is subservient to her. And not only like, Lakshmi is subservient. She's like very obediently sitting at his feet and pressing his legs. Whereas here, Kali in her very fierce form has Shiva under her feet. She's pressing him with his feet. He's totally helpless. And that's the fiercest form of the divine. It's very difficult to even worship her. Only the bravest can do. So then how do you explain this phenomena, which you just explained, that okay, she is a time, she is equal, but there's an aspect of her where she is completely boundless.
Correct.
Even the male form is beneath her.
Okay, this is a very, very difficult symbology to understand. I wish I could show you the picture of Smashana Kali. I know which Kali you're talking about, where she's naked and her hair is flying and her
Yes,
feet is planted on
correct.
Shiva, and Shiva appears to be dead. So let me give you a description, since I'm not able to share the image. Shiva will be lying dead at her feet. Her feet will be planted on Shiva's chest. Her hair will be loose. She'll be naked. She'll be in the smashanam, in the burial ground. One hand she'll be holding a severed head of a person. She'll be wearing a garland of severed heads, and she'll be wearing a skirt of severed hands, and she'll be pitch black in color. Yeah, actually, she was so frightening that when the British first saw that image, they called her the Indian demon. It was such a frightening image. They could not imagine it as a godly figure. But there is something so deeply, like, I think it is the epitome of symbolism, how beautifully they've symbolized an important concept using this image of Kali. So I said Smashana Kali represents the time of dissolution, when the whole universe has been destroyed and dissolved. Okay, so Kali is the principle of time. And her open hair represents her complete freedom. Generally women are not allowed to leave their hair open. Hair is such a contentious topic for women, right? So you plait your hair when you're a young person. Then in our parents or grandparents' generation, once you're married, you wear a bun. Then you shave off your hair when you become a widow. So hair is a it is a symbolism for how you are limited by certain boundaries. That's what hair represents. So by letting her hair loose, it represents her total freedom. And she will have 50 heads, severed heads. So 50 heads is 50 is the number of alphabets, Sanskrit alphabets. So when you say when you talk about creation, the first created entity is supposed to be sound. So the severed head represents the potential for next creation. So although the heads are severed and hanging around the head, this is potentially available for next creation. The next creation will begin with this sound. And then the hand represents, you do all actions with your hand. Hand represents Kriya Shakti. So all our karmas are represented by hands. So the severed hands represent that all these karmas have become dormant now, but they will come back again. So these hands represent the dormant nature of karma. And then, Shiva is the consciousness principle. And Shiva cannot do anything without his Shakti. So Shiva is equal to Shava without Shakti. But at the same time, Shakti cannot function unless she's established in Shiva. So her feet is on Shiva, saying all her functioning power comes from Shiva. But Shiva himself is useless without her. So it represents a symbiotic relationship between Shiva and Shakti. And more than anything, what is most beautiful about this Kali, what you'll miss about this Kali are her two hands, One will be in Abhaya Mudra and one will be in Varada Mudra. You must have seen these mudras. Abhaya Mudra means don't be afraid. Be fearless. I am there with you. So you have nothing to be afraid of. This is Abhaya Mudra. Varada Mudra is the hand for giving boons. Whatever you seek, I'll give you. So even though she's so fierce, she's holding these mudras, reminding us that she's after all a mother. So if you really know me, you will know that I'm your mother and I'm here to protect you. So even in that fierce form, they've given her these two mudras. So this Smashana Kali is an amazing, amazing work of art, work of beauty, and work of philosophy.
Archana, I'm reminded of something of which I had a first-hand experience, or rather some realization had dawned upon me regarding the pair of Shiva and Durga or Kali, whatever you say. And that was like very long ago. And I was perhaps in a state of deep meditation. And what happened to me, I could see, because I was worshipping or rather calling upon the form of Shiva, like Shiva and Shakti. And then what I saw was that all of a sudden, I'm praying to Shiva, I'm offering him water and other things, and all of a sudden his form begins to change. And I was like very afraid, and why is he changing from somebody looking so benign to something so fierce? And then he just changed form into that of a tiger. And then what I saw is that the Parvati, mother goddess, she comes and she sits on him. And then I saw, oh my God, he anyways wear the bagambar. Na? His dress is of
Tiger.
the tiger skin.
Hmm.
And then I was able to connect it to, okay, her Vahanam is her husband herself. They are never separate, even in the battlefield. So, like we think that, okay, just the Kali or the goddess who goes and kills all the demons and relieves Mother Earth of all her suffering. But even there, she is accompanied by Shiva. So the two are never separate. And that was like a huge revelation for me. Okay, my God, okay, this is what it means.
Yeah, actually, if you see Shiva's image, Shivi, you will see he will have two different earrings. One earring worn by women and one earring worn by men. It is to indicate that at no time, Shiva will ever be separated from Parvati. Shamba Sadashiva is always with Parvati.
Always, even in the battlefield, he is there in the form of a tiger. So that's the tiger is not a separate entity. That's his work. Okay, so also can we talk about Narsimha?
Narasimha, you want?
No, if you want, we can discuss Nataraja also. Let's take it one by one. So let's discuss Nataraja then.
Okay, you want to go with Nataraja first?
Okay.
Narasimha is basically, maybe briefly, I'll tell you, is part of Dashavatara. See, some of it is symbolically deep and some of it is based on our Puranas. Dashavatara itself, they say, contains the elements of evolution. So if you see Matsya is first fish. Then Kurma is a tortoise, amphibian. From an aquatic thing, you get a amphibian. Then Varaha is a boar, you get a mammal, a land animal. Varaha, then you have Narasimha. Narasimha is half animal and half human. It is supposed to represent an evolution, the concept of evolution, how the whole life forms evolved from base to the superhuman form. Krishna is supposed to be a superhuman with all the technological powers that we possess now.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the Kalki avatar, who was very much in talks currently, because the common perception is that we are at the crux of a major dimensional shift in the earth energies. Maybe we are entering a new yuga. So, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding this subject. So, according to you, Archana, what do you think? Again, does Kalki represent the element of the anger or the of destruction present in all of us, where we collectively want to cleanse the planet of whatever adharma is existing in it, and he may not be a separate entity as we consider him to be, because that is what you you just refer to.
See, Kalki avatar, if you go by our Puranic texts, it's a long way to go. Because we are not even in the middle of Kali Yuga. So many thousands of years later only, if you go by our textual references on the time frame of when Kalki will appear, many more thousand years to go before Kalki actually appears. But if you look at avatars, these 10 avatars are supposed to be just a sample of the total avatars, because regularly, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, whenever there is a yada yada hi dharmasya, whenever the dharma is going down, and whenever bad is increasing, when all negative energies become powerful, when good people suffer, I will come and make sure that good people are protected and the bad is destroyed. So it happens all the time. Maybe we have just representatively talked about 10 avatars. Even Shankaracharya is considered an avatar of Shiva. So we don't have to wait for one particular Kalki to come. So every yuga, every generation, whenever there is a decline of goodness, decline of dharma, decline of righteousness, I will come and make sure that the righteousness.
And it may not necessarily be in the physical form, like he's the one and he's going to destroy. I think he exists in all of us, and in a collective angst to kind of change things for the better and fight adharma. And so maybe the texts, our scriptures are talking about this aspect. And obviously, since the human mind and the memory works in a certain way, so kind of just to embed this in our mind, certain shapes and forms could have been given. I'm just kind of
possible, yes.
This just a conjecture, may not be fine. So yes, and any other god? Yes, Nataraja. Yeah, we were right, Nataraja.
Yeah, one of my favorite
yes,
representation of Shiva, because even in my YouTube channel, I've done several videos on Nataraja, because Nataraja has so many, again, many different interpretations of Nataraja. And even in the West, even Western physicists have had a lot of are intrigued by his form. So at the basic level, let me tell you at a philosophical level what Nataraja represents. Nataraja represents the process of continuous creation and destruction. Yeah, Shiva is a dancer. Now, Shiva, if you see in South Indian temples, in Brihadishwara temple, he is represented in all the 108 movements of Natya Shastra. In Bharatanatyam, they have 108 different movements described in Natya Shastra, Bharatanatyam. And there are sculptures of him dancing in all the 108 poses of Natya Shastra. But there is one particular form of Nataraja which is very, very famous. It's called Ananda Tandavam. So I wish I could show you the image. He'll be holding his hand like this, and there'll be a ring of fire around him. I don't know whether it's a very popular image.
It's very much popular. I think you can find it in most homes, especially in the drawing room place.
So that has generated a lot of interest all over the world. In fact, there is a Nataraja in CERN, because many physicists have described his dance as a dance of subatomic particles. So let me tell you what is the philosophy it represents. If you see, Nataraja has 4 hands. In 2 of his hands, he'll have a drum and fire. So the drum represents sound. According to our Genesis, if you look at our Puranas, how they describe the creation, the first created entity is space, and the nature of space is sound. So Om that is why is considered the sound of creation. So the drum represents creation and the fire represents destruction. And if you see, it will be uniform in equal position. His hands these two will be equally positioned. So how he balances, in order for the universe to function, creation and destruction should be uniformly balanced. So if you're only destroying, universe will be destroyed. But if you're only creating and destruction doesn't happen, you will be flooded. It will not work.
So even that will lead to destruction eventually.
Yeah. So creation and destruction is uniformly balanced in him. And the circular fire around him represents the cyclic nature of creation. And then if you see on his feet, again, there is a demon called Apasmara. Apasmara literally means epilepsy, like the epilepsy, but actually it is a representation of chaos. So in order for creation to happen, he suppresses chaos under his feet. So the chaos is suppressed, and that's how he brings about order in the world. Then one hand, you will see Abhaya Mudra. See, like this he'll have. One hand, Abhaya Mudra. The other hand is called Gajahasta Mudra, which is elephant trunk. So in order for just whatever I described about Ganesha, his range of skills, he's skilled in so many different things. That's his range of skills, Gajahasta Mudra. Then one leg is lifted, which shows what is required for you to escape this continuous cycle of creation and destruction. For that, you need to learn detachment, because we are all the time attached to the world. We keep coming back to the world again and again. So detachment it represents. And by representing the whole creation as dance, what they indicate is the only real thing in this universe is Shiva, is God. Everything else, from the stars to the planets to the tiny little atoms, are just different expressions of his dance. They have no substantiality. Only thing real, only thing substantial about creation is Shiva. Everything else is just an illusion. That's what is represented in the dance of Nataraja. And many physicists say that is like a very accurate representation of the creation and destruction of subatomic particles.
So and, how was physicists able to link Nataraja with all these scientific truths? Because mostly they are very skeptical about anything divine. They like constantly trying to look for the divine in the laboratories, and which is, I don't think, possible unless and until you go on a self-inventory. So then this linking Nataraja with the truths or the facts of science is something really which I'm not able to understand. How were they able to reach to this point?
I don't know how they got introduced to Nataraja, but I've read many physics books by eminent physicists who talk about Nataraja. One of the first books I read by a physicist is this Tao of Physics by a physicist who talks about how this, if you look at these subatomic particles which continuously gets created and destroyed, destroyed, it is a perfect representation. Shiva's dance, Ananda Tandavam, is a perfect representation of that. And then more recently, I read this book called Order of Time by a famous Italian physicist, where he talks about what is time actually. Whether it really exists, what is the nature of time, and throughout he uses Nataraja as an example, as a metaphor to describe time, and he uses it so beautifully, perfectly as it is described in our texts, the symbolism of Nataraja. So it has fascinated physicists all over the world, this idol of Nataraja.
Great. And I'm really unable to think of any more divine forms we can discuss. Anything else you have on your mind which you can talk about?
Yeah, see, maybe you need not go to this deep philosophical concepts of Nataraja and Kali, even simple things, even simple symbol like Ganesha I spoke about, the simple symbology. Now take example for Saraswati, one of her Vahanam is a Hamsa. Hamsa, is a legendary bird. It's not a real bird. Normally you think of it as a swan, but it's not a swan. It's a bird from our Puranas, which is supposed to have very special ability. So when you put a bowl of milk mixed with water in front of Hamsa, it will absorb only the milk and leave out the water, I believe. So it is a representation of wisdom. Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, rides on wisdom. The ability to discern right from wrong. This world which is so mixed up with good and bad, which is so hard to discriminate. What knowledge endorses is that wisdom, the ability to take out what is right and what is good from this totally mixed up world. And that is why rishis are called Paramahamsa, because they make the ultimate distinction of removing the unreal from the real and only taking the real.
Ganesha also is escorted by Riddhi and Siddhi. They are considered to be his wives. So, like, what do Riddhi and Siddhi represent?
So if you have all the qualities which Ganesha embodies, Riddhi is in the north. Here they call it Siddhi and Buddhi. So you have accomplishment and intelligence. Both will be your wives, your Shaktis. So Siddhi is accomplishment. If you have all these qualities, success will naturally be your companion. And Buddhi, intelligence will be your companion.
Okay, fine. And then we also have the goddesses of wealth and wisdom and power. So why do you think that they are in feminine form and not in the masculine form?
Okay, see, in our tradition, that's what all powerful entities are generally female in our representation. So that goes back to the Vedantic concept. See, the whole universe is supposed to be just consciousness, and this consciousness manifests into this world through a power called Maya Shakti. So this consciousness is represented as a male principle, but he cannot do anything without his power, the Maya Shakti. So Maya Shakti, because Maya Shakti is part of this Brahman, it is represented as a female entity. So all the power of any god is represented as a female entity.
So all this knowledge, is it supposed to be something very esoteric, or were common people not considered eligible for this form of knowledge? And this got lost in time, and like it's taking people like you to again bring it back to conscious memory. Why did it happen? Like, were people kept away from it, or kind of they were like more comfortable simply worshipping them as the blessing givers and really not into finding out the deeper meaning? Why do you think that we came so far?
No, I think we had a system of education, Shivi. We had we had Gurukulas, we had our system of education, we had our, syllabus that got totally replaced when we had, foreigners coming and replaced it with a new education system, right? So all those, what was traditionally taught to us was no longer taught to us. So it got lost. Now you have to learn all this out of your own interest. So I'm sure in our tradition, all this information would have been passed on to us. We would have learned it. So when we looked at the images of God, we would have understood what they meant, because it would have been part of our learning process. It would have been part of our curriculum. Then it got replaced by a totally new modern education system, which does not encompass all this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pradeep Krishnan, he says that the long invasions, they destroyed all this knowledge that we had in our possession, and now we have only these scraps of, we have very little of what we actually possess. So I think that's a very apt observation, Pradeep ji. Yes, a lot of foreign invasions, and especially the destruction of great universities, actually gave us a big body blow in that in this particular area, and we lost this great wealth that we always had in a position, and now it's such a tragedy that it's the Western scholars who are delving deeper into it and now kind of giving it back to us. So, anyways, better late than never. Any questions we have? I think, let me just unmute. Can you unmute the participants so if they have any questions, they can ask them? How should I start video? You can start the videos. If the listeners have any questions, they can ask them.
Hello, can you hear me? Shiviji, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ma'am, can you please explain the symbolism between Kartikeya?
Durga. Yes, that is a difficult symbolism to explain. Actually, Kartikeya is supposed to represent a form of Tantra. He has 6 heads. He represents the 6 stages of spiritual development. The Kundalini Shakti, if you've heard of the Tantra practice, there is supposed to be a seat of energy, which is at the base of our spine. And as our spiritual wisdom and spiritual knowledge increases, this energy raises up our spine and reaches the head, which is called Sahasrara. So the 6 levels through which the spiritual energy passes through represents the 6 heads of Kartikeya. Actually, his knowledge, that is why it's a very difficult symbolism to understand. I think one of the easiest thing to understand is his weapon. His weapon is veil. Veil, the veil is supposed to have a pointed tip, a broad, it is in the shape of a leaf. And then you have a big stick, no? Anybody has seen a veil? I don't know, sir, if you've seen a veil which Kartikeya holds. It is supposed to represent knowledge. How knowledge should be. It should be sharp, broad, and deep. That's what that veil represents. And with this veil, with the power of knowledge, the rays of spiritual energy is represented by his 6 heads.
Any more questions? Anybody else has any question to ask?
Chat.
Let me just open the chat.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Can we keep the Raja?
Yes, yes. Okay. Should one keep a Nataraja in the house? People have a lot of questions in this regard.
See, Nataraja, I have. In our part of the world, in South India, what they say is you should not keep a Krishna with a flute. The flute playing Krishna. Nataraja, I've never heard any issues with Nataraja. But generally, when you have idols at home and when you think of them as for worshipping, then you have to have certain processes which you follow, like doing Abhishekam, Naivedyam, and all that. But if you're simply having it as a piece of art for display, that is a different matter. But as far as Nataraja is concerned, I've never heard that it's not supposed to be kept at home. You can keep a Nataraja.
But why shouldn't we keep a Krishna playing flute in our homes? Like,
I don't know, it's a center. It's supposed to be this flute, no? It's supposed to be how he puts everybody into a state of Maya, absorbed in Maya. So it's supposed, generally, I think it is just some sentimental value. I've not read it anywhere, but I've just heard it from my parents and relatives that if you keep a flute playing Krishna, he will keep you entrenched in Maya.
Okay, so there's a lot of symbology, there's a lot of symbolism attached to almost every single action of them. For example, even when Krishna stands in a certain way, these are like Tribhanga, it is called. So people attach a lot of meaning to that as well, that there is a certain meaning to why he's standing the way he is. This is quite baffling because most people don't even give a second thought to these kind of things. For them, Krishna playing a flute and standing with a certain tilt means that he's a charmer and he's a stealer of hearts and he's calling for everybody to come and fall in love with him. So that is the general perception that people have. But maybe, the scientific-minded people like you, maybe looking at it from a very different angle. I just want to know what is the perspective of people like you regarding this, the certain way Krishna stands and plays his flute.
Yeah,
is it
actually,
about Maya?
I
Is
remember
it about
reading
cosmos?
about.
It is about. Yes.
Yeah, Tribhanga I've heard, but I don't recall now, Shivi, on what is the significance of the Tribhanga stand. I don't know whether it is the three aspects of Maya, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. I'm not able to recall now. I'm sorry. But then what you spoke about, some people just appreciating Krishna as the person who steals the damsel's clothes. He's beautiful. He plays the flute. I think there is a beauty to appreciating different aspects of our gods. Even in Bhagavad Gita, there is a very beautiful verse describing Bhagavad Gita. It's like a lotus, I believe, Bhagavad Gita. From far, when you see, you can appreciate its beauty. And if you're a bee, you can go and suck its honey. But it doesn't mean that person who's appreciating the beauty of a lotus from far is any less than the person who's able to suck honey from the lotus, right? So it is nice that at different levels, based on your level of understanding, maturity, and intellect, you can appreciate our gods. Each person can get something out of the images of our gods.
Right, and Vishnu is also shown as a lotus is coming from his navel, and then Brahma is shown to be sitting on it. Now, this is also something very baffling. So, why should a lotus be coming from the navel, and then another god is sitting on it? This is what is the significance of this particular image?
Ranganatha Swami is again a very, very beautiful and very deeply symbolic image of Vishnu. Vishnu lying and sleeping and Brahma emerging from the navel is a representation of the illusionary nature of our universe. It's a very deep Vedantic concept. In Vedanta, the whole world is called illusion. The entire universe is nothing but consciousness, and all the things which you see, all the variety that you see is only an illusion. So for that, they give an analogy in Vedanta of a dream. Like when you sleep, what happens? The entire dream exists in your mind. It's a product of your consciousness. But you see mountains, rivers, lakes, and so many material things in your dream. But they're not material at all. They're just products of your consciousness, right? So that's what the sleeping Ranganatha represents. He's lying down and the whole universe is nothing but his dream. And why does the lotus come from his navel? As I said, the first created entity, according to our Shastras, is sound. And the base of the sound is supposed to be, the origin of our sound is supposed to be navel. All sounds originate from our navel. So as he's lying down and dreaming the universe, the space is emerging. Sound or space is emerging from his navel. So it is the emergence of space as Vishnu dreams up the universe. And his bed is Adi Shesha, with thousands of heads that is supposed to represent our karmas. Shesha means snake, but Shesha also means what is left over. So all our leftover karmas are the cause of the next universe. So we don't exhaust our karmas, right? Every living beings have their leftover karmas. So that leftover karma is the cause of the next universe. So his bed is Adi Shesha. All our karmas act as his bed and puts Vishnu to sleep, and he dreams of the universe. That is the symbology of the sleeping Vishnu.
Okay, so Archana, tell me, a lot has been discussed about time. That time is an illusion. I want to know, is it also linked to space? Time and space are very quite deeply interlinked. So if time is an illusion, isn't space too an illusion?
No, according to our Shastras, the whole universe is an illusion. Time and space and everything is an illusion.
Everything.
Yeah.
So where there is no time, there is no space either.
Yes.
And how to even imagine such I don't know which word to use, but this particular idea itself, where there is no space and time. So what is there instead?
Yes.
How to see yourself in that in a place like this?
Yeah.
So
in fact,
no space.
Shivi, the very first one of the oldest Rigvedic hymn is called Nasadiya Sukta. There they also wonder the same thing. Even today, physicists are struggling with it. There was neither existence, there was neither non-existence. It says that's how the Na Sat means there was neither non-existence. So it's an absence of even non-existence. Whenever you say there is existence, an absence of it is non-existence. So they imagine a state where there is an absence of non-existence also. So it is something so indescribable. And even today, 4,000 years back, we wondered about it. And even today, physicists are wondering about it. That is the nature of this illusion.
Yeah, and even things like that, where there was neither darkness nor light. Now, for a mind which only knows duality, what is beyond these two phenomena? It's like beyond our grasp. Okay,
Correct,
either it's darkness or it's light. What is the third entity?
Yeah.
If it's neither darkness nor light, what is there? How to describe? How to feel? How to perceive? That's like something. It's very, very otherworldly, too metaphysical for the common human to understand.
Yes.
It's like totally very difficult to conceive also of something like that. Okay, is there any more questions are coming? Any more questions? No? Acha, like Shank, Chakra, Gada, and Padmanabh. I think this is what he had been trying to tell me, that what Vishnu is adorned with. Shank, Chakra, Gada, and yes.
Yeah, actually, Shankar represents the material world. Chakra represents the, it is the Panchabhutas and intellect, mind and intellect. These are all the various components according to what is the universe comprised of? This is what our Shastra says. The Panchabhutas, the mind and the intellect. So you have Shankar represents the Panchabhutas, Chakram represents the intellect, and Gada represents the mind. Intellect, the sharp thing represents the intellect, and Gada represents the mind. So all the components of creation are in his hands. That's what those instruments represent. So actually whatever the gods hold in their hands are very, very special. They are the ones which gives the most of the symbolism of the deity is embodied in the weapons and the symbols which they are holding in their hand.
Great. So, Archana, I think I did hear somebody, and there was a statement I heard that, why do you even want to describe God as love? You said even a dog has a lot of love. If you have to perceive or think of God, things in terms of intelligence, limitless, fathomless intelligence. You can never measure it, never quantify it, never ever even understand it. So don't ever measure it with love. Love is too small a thing. Look at his intelligence, infinite intelligence, and that's really actually the truth. If you see, love is still easier to understand, relate to. Intelligence is it's infinite. It's very difficult to see any end, beginning or end of this whole thing called intelligence, especially the divine intelligence with which he has created the entire universe, planets, multiverses are there, black holes are there, and whatnot. We are still discovering, finding, and not finding any end. It's to this infinite intelligence of the divine. Great. I think we may have two more unconditional. Dolan Acharya says that God is unconditional love. Yeah, that's true. But he's also limitless, infinite intelligence.
Yes.
There are yogis maybe who have reached this level of unconditional love. But
Mm.
has there been anybody who has been able to match the intelligence of the divine? I don't think there has been anybody. Anybody.
Okay, so just talking about unconditional love, which he spoke about. So that is, when you are a realized soul, you are supposed to have sarvatma bhava. The whole universe is you. So what is the highest form of love? It's our self-love. See, all kinds of love can come and go, but our love for our own self can never go, no? So sarvatma bhava is looking at the whole universe as yourself. You love everything as your own self. So that is sarvatma bhava. That's one of the qualities of a realized person, actually. That is why God is described as infinite love, because everything is God. So everything is Himself. So how can you not love anything about yourself? No. So that is why God is called infinite love.
Infinite love. And with love, He has made the whole universe and everything, small, the tiniest of things to the biggest of things. Great. Okay, thank you, Archana. Thank you for this wonderful session. It was hugely enlightening.
Thank you, Shivi.
We look forward to more such talks with you. You have a wealth of wisdom to share from our scriptures and how they are linked with current modern science, technology, and the scientific discoveries, which just end up validating which has already been known to us since eons. Thank you so much, Archana, for being on the show. I just express my heartfelt gratitude to you on behalf of all my listeners. And the readers and subscribers of Life Positive. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shivi. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure having this discussion with you.
Thank you so much.
You.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll take your leave.
Bye.
Bye. Any meeting?